The answers for number 2, you had 1 kilogram at 30% and 3 kilograms at 10%. Number 8 should have been 55 performances. Number 10 that you were doing is not viable because it's not possible to have the negative 2,000. So as you guys are looking at that textbook assignment, we're going to answer some questions from that. From past, I'll take it. Do you have your textbook assignment? Okay. So you might want to take out a piece of paper if you're writing anything down as you're doing these. So in number 1 was an expense and an income equation, a system. And again, I always have students say to me, well, do I have to write a system for that? Because this is in systems of equations, yes. Could it have been possible that you put this down equals this and only wrote one equation? Yeah. But it's a system that I ask you to write. So I've had some people over the years argue with me and like, this doesn't make sense that I have to write this first. Okay? So number 2 is a question. A metal alloy of metal made of blending 2 or more types of metal. The jeweler has supplies of 2 metal alloys. One is 30% gold, so I call that my X. 30% gold. As a decimal, 30% is 0.30 or 0.3, 0.30, however you'd like to write it. The other one is 10% gold. So when they talk about 24 karat gold, right, they're kind of talking about those percentages. So again, 10%, 0.1. And the first thing we know is that it makes 4 kilograms, and we want our gold to be 15%. So yesterday when I was doing this in class, I might put my 15%, my total, was going to be 15%, and that was the 4 kilograms. Which means these two have to add up to equal 4. So it could have been like 1.5 and 2.5. It could have been, okay? So we look at number 2, and the first equation is how much we have. So this is the total. We have 4 kilograms. The next one is taking the 0.3, 30% times, we don't know how much of this, so times X. Then it's 0.1 times Y. Then it's 15%, and you have to take it times the 4. And so the biggest mistake there, did I get your glasses? Yes, please. The biggest mistake on that is that people want to just put either the 0.15 there, or they want to just put the 4. Okay? So that was question number 2. What's that?
You want my name
on D5 is you wrote the equation, and then you didn't really show me how you solved it. So I said I'm going to use substitution. I'm going to put y equals, so I subtracted x from both sides. I went to this equation, and I replaced my y with 4 minus x. So I'm looking at this, and I say, oh, 0.3x plus 0.1 times parenthesis, because I'm replacing that y, instead of y, I'm using 4 minus x, equals, when I multiplied here, I got 0.6. So I am now going to have 0.3x, and I distribute 0.4, minus 0.1x equals 0.6. Now there's some of you that when you do these questions, you don't like to have decimals. So could you have multiplied everything here by 10 and not had decimals? Sure, that would work. I didn't do that because I'm using my calculator and I'm fine putting decimals in. So I subtracted 0.4 from both sides. I got 0.2 equals 0.2x. 0.3 minus 0.1. They're on the same side of the equal sign. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.2. And I get that my x at this point should be 1, and then the 3. So when you were looking at those answers, 1 kilogram and the 3 kilograms. There was a question on 7. Is that the one you wanted to look at? Yes? Or which one was it, 8? Or which one did you tell me? I can't remember.
Then I have one on the workbook.
From the workbook. Anyone have any other of these questions that you want me to go through or help you with? So tomorrow you have to submit this assignment, right? Or on Friday, this assignment and the workbook assignment, okay? The work that you guys have. So, this is page, right before your homework. Someone want to tell me what page we're on? What's on the test? 23. So as you look at page 23, on page 23, there's 8 questions on the test that you're filling in. When is your test? Monday, Tuesday, next week, right? So we are taking a look at that. Page 23 test is next week, either Monday or Tuesday. You guys are Monday. I can model real-world problems using linear systems. There's 4 questions. It says you will write a system. For a break even, you'll have a mixture. You're going to have a wind speed. One of the other problems, you'll do this part of the test, then you'll turn it in. So the first one is going to be kind of like that homework quiz we were doing, that you have to just write those equations. You won't solve anything. You'll just write it. Then what we do is we give you a test with the correct equations, right? Because we do not want you to take this test and not make sure that you haven't, like, because if you screw up the equations, it could mess everything up, right? So we don't want to have that. The second part of the test that you'll get, I'll give you solving with substitution or elimination. And some of you, I'm handing back some old stuff. I just wasn't sure if the sub handed these back or not, or you might have seen your answers. But, all right. Then you're going to have 2 graphing problems. When you do the substitution or elimination, I don't care which way you solve it. If you want to do them both with substitution, you can. Want to do them both with elimination, you can. On the quiz that I handed back today, you had to do them a specific way. You didn't have an option to not do substitution or elimination when you looked at the quiz that you got back today. You had to do it that way. So when you take a look at these, it's really important that you're understanding how to look at those, okay? The number of points on the test, I'm not sure. I want to say it's going to, I think it's 50 points, okay? And it's 8 questions. So when you write this 2 equations, right? When I write those 2 equations, so if I'm thinking about this one, this is like 4 points for this and 4 points for this, right? It's 4 points for this equation and 4 points for the next equation. So those ones that we just looked at. So then it's to solve, and again, I don't care which method you solve, but I got to be able to see how you did it, if it's substitution or if it's elimination. When you look at the quiz that I handed back to you, on the quiz, if you turn it over, so number 1, it's a percent problem. This one's a little trickier. Sometimes it's a little different. So it's kind of like those percent problems. So we're going to start with our x and y. As you look at x and y in this equation, they say you have $6,000. Your first fund is 5%. The second is 9%. Oh, so maybe instead of x and y, I use f for my first, right? The first one is at 5%. I'm going to try and figure out how many dollars I have there. I don't know that yet, right? That's why it's F. It's my unknown. Then I have the second account. And for second, I'm going to use Y. Where am I going to use Y? Because my F looks like a 5. If I put a 5 and I meant F, then I might get mixed up. So I'm going to use this, and this is going to be my second. And my second is at 9%. Ooh, that's making a lot more money for me. And I have a total of $6,000. So my total is 6,000. And I want, says, if after a year you've made $380 in interest, how much money did you invest in each? That $380, that's like the percent times, like if I would have known what percent this was, it was that percent times 6,000 gives me. So my second equation, so one equation is going to be equaling the dollars. F plus Y equals, Andrew, how many dollars? No. How many dollars do I get to invest and put in my savings accounts? 6,000. Then we're going to go with our percentages. And this is the one that's tricky because this one is equal to 380 here. How did they get this 380? They took some percent times 6,000. They don't tell us what percent, right? They just said the interest you earn is 380. So in that last story problem, when I said it was 50% or whatever times 10, they did that for you and came up with this dollar value. So this is going to be my 0.05F plus 0.09Y. Questions as you look at question 1. What do we know we have to pay? Like someone to the fixed cost for our materials. So we're going to produce lawn chairs, cost $525 each week, in addition to the materials, $850 per chair. So if we are thinking about this, we might use X is our number of chairs. And I think a lot of times it's helpful if you can identify your variables. And then Y is going to be our money. Okay? So, Sharon, for my expenses, what kind of expenses do I have to make stuff? Each week I always have to pay how much? Kind of like my y-intercept, my starting point. Each week I have to pay how much? $525. No variable with that, right? Because I'm trying to figure out how much chairs. Plus, Kyrell, what do I know how much it costs me to make each chair? $8.50. 8.5X. Okay. So are you ready to give me my income? How much am I making per chair? Y equals 15.5 times each chair, right? So times X. You gotta have an X with it. Okay. Anyone ready for number 3 yet? Before we do number 4? Anyone have number 3? One equation for number 3. What do I know? The total amount of milliliters that the two have to add together. So X, Y, I'm going to use my vinegars. X for me is going to be 8%. Y is going to be 12.5%. My answer is going to be 10%. And I know it is 180 milliliters. So I set the problem up by writing my variables. I put the percents behind. This is what my total is going to be, my answer, 10% and 180. From that, so you ready to give me the first equation for how many milliliters? X plus Y equals how many milliliters? You got it. X plus Y equals 180. Next equation is my percents. Anyone ready? Give it a shot.
0.08 x
Yes.
plus
Move it over 2 places, right? So 0.125 y.
y
Okay.
equals 180 10.
Okay. So 0.1, I'm going to put my percent first times 180. That leaves me with just 18, right? This is going to be 18. And I multiply that. So could you have just put 18 instead of 0.1 times 180? Yes, but I like putting the percents because this is the percent times how much of this one. Like this could be 20 and this could be 160, right? That totals to 180. We're thinking about that. So do we want to solve this one all the way through? Do you guys want to help solving one? If we do substitution or elimination, should we do this one? And then we're going to set up number 4. And then we can look at some other ones like 7, 8 if we need to. But so if I was going to solve this one, just because of these ugly decimals, I prefer substitution. And I have to find both x and y. And they're both kind of ugly numbers out here, so it doesn't really matter. So what do you want to solve for? X or y? You get to just choose. X. So we're going to say x equals 180, and what did I have to do to get x by itself? We had to subtract y. So we subtracted y. I'm now going to go to this equation right here, and I'm going to put, instead of the x, I'm going to put in that 180 minus y. So on your paper, this would be the second part of the test. I give you these 2 equations and say solve it now, right? The first page of the test is just you writing all of these equations, like 4 of them, okay? 0.08, we're going to have times 180 minus y plus 0.125y equals 18. Take those calculators out for me. We're going to do some multiplying. We're taking 0.08 times 140. I think it's 14 something. Someone have a calculator and get me 14.08 times 180. 14.4. Now I'm going to take 0.08 times that minus y. So I'm going to have minus 0.08y. This is substitution. Then I have this plus 0.125y equals 18. I am subtracting 14.4. I got to get all my numbers on one side. In that same step, I'm going to add these 2 together. Negative 0.08 plus 0.125. Again, you're going to be able to use your calculators when you take the test next week. So I'm going to add those 2, or actually subtract them. I get 0.045y equals, when I subtract here, 18.0 minus 14.4 gives me 3.6. All right, so I'm going to divide both sides by 0.045. And I get y equals, put it in your calculator, should be 80. Okay, that's really easy. Now I just need to, this is 100, right? I'm not even going to have to show much work because I know they had the total to 180. Instead of looking at number 4, you won't have one as hard as number 4 on the test. So I would rather return and look at, what do we got? Going like with the wind and against the wind, like maybe number 9 or 10, one of those that we could look at, or if there's something else. We've already done an expense, we've done a couple % ones. So how about we try number 9? Number 9, speed of a kayaker paddling with the current is 5.75. So you're going faster with the current, 3.25 going against. K for kayaker plus the current, kayaker minus the current, right? Which one's going to be more? When you're going with the current or against? When do you go faster? What are you guys thinking? With, right? So this has to be my 5.75. This one has to be 3.25. Anytime you have a current or a wind speed, it's going to be like the plane plus the wind, plane minus it. K minus, okay? Well, this is so nice for substitution, right? 2K equals 9, right? 5.75 plus 3.25, that gives me 9. 2K, I'm going to divide by 2. How fast was I kayaking? I carried at a pretty good speed. 4.5 miles per hour. Okay. Could we find the other one pretty easily by just subtracting or adding, depending which way you want to solve it? Okay. So we got a couple of minutes. I don't know if there